Donald Trump can't stand black people, especially black people who lead cities in this country. He's always ragging on Chicago, Mayor Brandon Johnson, Los Angeles, Mayor Karen Bass, Brandon Scott in Baltimore, Memphis, Paul Young. We can go on and on and on. It's amazing how he never brings up cities run by white mayors where they have crime. But they always are pushing this idea that these large Democrat-run cities are just hotbeds of crime, and that there's no crime like in these cities, unlike any other. Yet Michael Harriot, the editor and founder of ContrabandCamp.com, said, that's bullshit. He joins us right now. Michael, glad to have you back on the show. So, what did you go through? So what were you, because we see this, and matter of fact, you know, Charlie Kirk, boy, he made a living off of this, going on college campuses, going on Jubilee, everywhere else, just running off and reciting all of these facts about black on black crime in these Democratic cities and how it's so awful, so bad, it's so terrible. And Donald Trump's runs with that. Democrats were on Capitol Hill this week, grilling the mayor of Washington, D.C., and others saying the exact same thing. But you found something different.
Yeah, so I actually started this not in response to Charlie Kirk, because I don't think this took so long that it couldn't have been done that quickly. I started this before just to, you've heard that rhetoric. And so I started looking into it, into the stats. Again, I always have to remind people that my career started as an economist, as that's what I taught in colleges across the country. And so what we found was that, first of all, one of the reasons we need to be teaching people civics lesson is that really there is no such thing as Democrat-run cities, right? Like, cities don't make the law that govern crime, right? Cities don't control the law. Even in large cities like New York, the state legislatures write the crime, the government write the laws. The state legislatures fund policing efforts. They fund the police academy in the states. So mayors and city councils have very little to do with crime. If anything, they hire the police officers. And, I always give my spiel here. Police officers do not prevent crime. They enforce the law that's already written. So the thing is that even in these so-called Democrat-controlled cities where crime is high, they're usually in red states. 16 of the cities with the highest crime rates are in Republican or red states. And, 4 of them are kind of in Republican red states, but the legislature is split. They have a Republican governor. One branch of the House, of the legislature is Republican controlled, but they might have another branch that has a slight Democratic majority. But only 4 of the worst, most violent cities are in, blue states. And the other thing we should know is when they always bring up Chicago, when it comes to violent crime, Chicago is 121st on the list. But because it's the 3rd largest city in America, they love to pull out those statistics. So, a combination of learning civics and actually knowing math is how you find out that most crime occurs in red states. And most of the crimes are in majority white, Republican controlled cities. Yeah, you broke up for a second.
Yeah, what are you basing the data on? So when you're talking about what are you basing that on?
So I use 2 specific databases, right? So one, I use the same database that they like to cite when they talk about black people being so violent, the FBI Uniform Crime Reporting Database. Now, instead of using the one about arrest, because we know how flawed arrest can be, that's just determined by who police arrest. The FBI also has a database on reported crime. So all of the crime that's reported, whether it's solved or not, whether they arrest someone or not, I use that database. And the other database that I used, aside from the census, is the American Council of State Legislatures they do a monthly report on who controls each state's legislature and governorship. So those are that's the data I use, government data.
So what's amazing to me is this wasn't hard for you to find. Why is it so hard for Democrats not to put out their own list of top 10 deadliest cities and show they're red?
One, I don't know why. And the other thing is, I mean, if you've ever, you know, passed by MSNBC and, you know, sadly caught Joe Scarborough talking about black on black crime in DC, because one city is deadly, like people know what they experience. So a lot of people feel like if you talk about where the crime actually occurs, you're dismissing the people because everybody is concerned about crime in their city. And, you know, there's years of Gallup research that shows that most people, whether they're black or white, wherever they live, they feel like crime is getting worse. And it's not true. Like crime has been on the decline since the 1990s. But I think that's partly why, and partly because, you know, the Democrats use white advisors and PR firms that advise them against it. We've seen, you and I have seen Democratic firms like Blue Rose Research tell them, hey, don't talk about DEI, don't, because it doesn't poll well. Don't talk about the crime or Trump sending troops to Washington, D.C. because it doesn't poll well. So that they keep chasing these so-called moderate white voters who never somehow show up in the ballot box, right, or in the voting booth. And that's partly why, right? Because the Democratic Party is still a white-controlled party who believes a lot of the nonsense like crime is in Democrat-controlled majority black cities.
Yeah, and also because it's been told so many times, folks just go, it just got to be true.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a lot of it too. Like these white supremacist narratives have been repeated so much that they become truth, right? And so we know that that's not true. Like when you look at, they always cite the arrest statistics. Well, we know like police only arrest about 2% of people who are responsible for crime. So you're telling me that police who they arrest, like these dudes who train for 6 weeks, are given a gun and a badge and sent out on the streets, they are the most effective determinants of who is committing the crime. And what we find is that crime occurs where police control because they determine who they arrest. And we say, well, that's a high crime area because they target black people. But in reality, if you look at where crime is reported, it's not specifically where black people live. It's usually in places with stuff like lax gun laws, low education, people who don't have, places with high unemployment rates. And those places just happen to be in red states.
So how do we change this narrative? I mean, and so is it just constantly, you know, just lighten up the folks like Joe Scarborough, Morning Joe? How do we change it? Because that is the narrative,
right? Like doing what you do, right? Like you light them up, and you have to write, and you don't just light them up and say you're stupid or that's racist. You light them up by saying what you're saying is not true. What you're saying is false. Now, if you can prove to me that crime is worse in this Democrat-controlled city, right? I always ask people, like, give me your zip code and I'm gonna see how the crime is in your city, right? And when they find out that, oh, the crime rate is just as high wherever these white people live, then they change their tune, right? But the other way we can do it is I believe in the, you know, trusting journalists, right? I believe in the theory of there's this concept called the necessary of existence, right? Like when people like you do shows like this and say, hey, that thing that you always believe, it's not true. This will be on the internet forever. This article will be on the internet forever, right? And so whenever somebody else decides to look up, is it true? They're going to go, this is going to come up in their Google search. That article is going to come up in their Google search, and then they can know the facts. And that's why it's important to trust journalists. And there's a difference between journalists and content creators and just people who say things like Joe Scarborough.
Absolutely. Well, great breakdown. Folks, go to contrabandcamp.com, contrabandcamp.com to check out Michael's story. You see it says right there, are Democrat-controlled black cities more violent? Here's what the data says. And also, folks, do us a favor, support independent black-owned media. Subscribe to contrabandcamp.com. And trust me, we need more of that, because this is what we're facing. We're facing right wing who is controlling so much of media. You got folk who just lie blatantly on television, on digital, on social, and very few folks want to correct them. And I'm a firm believer. The data is the data, so don't try to sit here and say one thing is the truth when it's really not. Michael, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
My panel, Matt Manning, civil rights attorney at Corpus Christi, Michael Imhotep, host African History Network show out of Detroit. Joining me right now in studio, Rob Portillo, civil rights attorney. He also works in the office of Congressman Jonathan Jackson. Glad to have all three of you here. I'm going to start with you, Robert. I mean, well, Michael laid it out. I mean, it's the BS that we constantly see, the BS we constantly see, the BS that we constantly see, and it's just stupid. And so facts are facts. And so it's important to combat the facts.
Yeah, I think we also have to stop letting other people define what exactly crime is. I think we have to stop allowing folks to tell us what statistics they're going to use. Because when we talk about high crime areas, I would argue the two highest crime areas in America right now are Wall Street and Capitol Hill. But we don't want to count that as being crime. If Wall Street steals $70 billion, like in the Enron scandal, somehow that's not considered a high crime area. If we're watching our military kill 30 random Venezuelans with absolutely no justification claiming they're narco-terrorists, that doesn't count as violent crime. So when we talk about framing these subjects, we are really talking about poverty. Because when we talk about high crime areas, we're talking about high poverty areas. The number one determining factor after 15 years in court defending people that I can tell you is the one determining factor is your zip code and your income when it comes to crime. And if we worked on dealing with housing, dealing with education, dealing with the price of food, dealing with universal health care, those crime numbers go down a whole lot more than mass incarcerations and putting troops in the streets.
But they don't want to deal with those fundamental issues, Matt. And it's always, hey, lock them up, throw away the key. That's how you solve it. And we know what that really is about. That is a short-term high that makes people say, look at them, they're just something about crime, when no, that's not actually what is going to drive crime down.
No, so it's about lock them up and throw away the key for the other people and not me. Like I've said on this show, people used to sit in my office when I was a prosecutor, and the same people I would see on social media saying the DA's office is too weak would be the ones who were coming in my office asking for an exception for Muffy because she got a DWI leaving the local college. I mean, the reality is they want the other people to be policed. And I think Robert hit the nail on the head. I mean, I was kind of hoping Michael got into that a little further, but he kind of alluded to it when he talked about a lot of the other metrics. Crime doesn't happen in a vacuum. And we know that when it comes to policing and arrests, police tend to be considerably more arrest heavy in the areas of town where they don't think the people there either have political power or have socioeconomic status or have been forgotten by the city, as is true across this country. And they arrest a lot more there than they do in the rich part of town. Let's just be straight up honest. How many times have I read a police report where the cop tells some rich kid that, you know, go ahead and get out of here, and they're going to snuff the weed out on the ground, but on the west side of town, they're hooking that kid up every day of the week for weed. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And we don't have that kind of nuance when we have these conversations. It's really about a lot more than whether your mayor is Democratic or Republican. And it's really just dishonest. I mean, it's disingenuous because there's so many other things that determine that. And what it's about is about dog whistling. It's about saying black or non-white or brown some other way than just saying black or non-white, right, or brown. I mean, it's about all the other metrics and all the other things than saying that that's not the truth. The truth is that crime is, first off, primarily committed by people against people of their own race. And secondly, the police have a completely different approach in different parts of town. And that is going to obviously correlate to the disparity in how things look. But even there, they're not honest about the data. And I'm glad that he trotted that out in the segment before.
Absolutely. And Michael, what we see here, listen, we got white execs in media, white hosts in media who don't want to actually present the data because they believe it too.
Well, yeah, not only do they believe it, but they make money off of pushing these lies, okay? So, number one, excellent work by Michael Harriot. Number two, if we look at this piece, because I've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks, there's a piece from Newsweek.com called High Crime in Republican Cities Fueled by Guns Inequality. And one of the things they talk about that oftentimes goes overlooked is that in a lot of Republican states or Republican cities, what have you, you have lower taxes in Republican areas. This may also lead to less funding for police, which helps fuel crime, but less police to catch the crime. Okay, so you have that. Another thing is, in a lot of cities that Republicans or conservatives like to say, oh, it's a Democratic city. When it comes to mayor, it's nonpartisan. So if you are a Republican who has better ideas, you can run for mayor as well in that city. Okay, some cities are different, but a lot of cities, mayor is nonpartisan. So it's also plays into this white supremacist narrative and stereotyping African Americans as having a proclivity to committing more crimes. But at the same time, you look at J.D. Vance, Junior Varsity Vance. He was just here this week in Howell, Michigan, which is known to be associated with the Ku Klux Klan. That's a whole nother conversation. But he said to Governor Gretchen Whitmer, she wasn't there, but he said, just say the word and we'll send the National Guard into Detroit. Okay. He didn't talk about the millions of dollars in community violence intervention grants that were cut nationwide, and many of that was cut here in Detroit. He didn't talk about the Safer Streets and Safer Communities, $811 million in grants that the Trump administration cut from the Biden administration that was helping bring down crime nationwide, including Detroit. So This is how many people see us. Right. So this is why we have to understand how elections have consequences, why media platforms like yours is so important, Roland.
Well, again, we know how white media works. All right, folks.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase, and I'm here with a very important message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.